What if your therapist, the one helping you grieve your wife's death, was the very woman your husband killed her for? This is a story of betrayal in its most sacred form, not just of marriage, not just of friendship, but of professional trust itself. It begins with a grieving widower. It explodes into a secret affair. And it ends with a confession caught mid-ocean, one that unravels a murder, a cover-up, and a crime hiding behind therapy's soft-spoken mask. Set on a luxury grief retreat cruise called Healing Horizons, this documentary unpacks the shocking moment a world-famous therapist was exposed for sleeping with her dead client's husband. And worse, helping him hide the truth about how that woman really died. It started as a healing journey. It ended with someone overboard and a voice recorder that changed everything. The Astra Meridian pulled away from the glowing Miami dock just after sunset. Champagne flowed freely on the upper decks. Somewhere in the crowd, Dr. Lila Wexler posed for selfies with admirers. Her newest book, The Anatomy of Grief, had just hit the bestseller charts. She was elegance incarnate, a calm voice in a chaotic world. But only one person on that ship knew what Lila was hiding. Elise Martin, an investigative journalist turned cynic, leaned against the deck rail with her eyes fixed on Daniel Jensen, the recently widowed husband of Elise's late best friend, Mara. Daniel looked too composed, too whole, and his presence on this cruise wasn't random, nor was Lila's. Elise pressed record on the tiny mic clipped to her necklace. She wasn't here to grieve. She was here to prove that her friend's death wasn't an accident. And as the ship disappeared into the night sea, Elise realized something chilling. Mara's killer might be sleeping just 2 doors down. 8 months ago, Mara Jensen was declared dead after a fall off Dead Elk Ridge, a notoriously unstable cliff in Colorado. She had gone hiking with her husband, Daniel Jensen, during what friends believed was a second honeymoon meant to patch up a strained marriage. Instead, she never returned. Her body was recovered. Her death was ruled accidental. No signs of a struggle. No one to question the man who came back alone. Except one person never bought the official story. Elise Martin, Mara's best friend since college. And when she learned Daniel had booked a grief cruise hosted by Dr. Lila Wexler, Mara's former therapist, Elise's instincts screamed louder than ever. She'd remembered Lila vaguely. Sharp suits, serene voice, always just a little too involved in Mara's life. "She gets me," Mara once said. "Better than Daniel does." Elise had dismissed it then. But now it felt like a clue hiding in plain sight. On the cruise, Lila kept her distance from Daniel publicly, but Elise watched them like a hunter. Small things betrayed them. A lingering glance during dinner, a private joke exchanged near the spa deck, Daniel brushing a hair from Lila's cheek as if it were habit. Not new, not professional. Elise began building her case. She mapped out timelines, dug through old texts. She even posed as an aspiring grief writer to gain access to the restricted breakout sessions. And she planted a voice recorder inside, one of the reflection rooms scheduled for private counseling. What she caught on tape wasn't a confession, not yet, but it was proof they were lovers. And if she was right about that, she might be right about everything else. Before her death, Mara Jensen had changed. She wasn't sleeping. Her journal entries, now in Elise's hands, were filled with fragmented sentences. "He watches me differently. Something isn't right with her. I'm scared to speak up." She had even missed therapy sessions with Dr. Lila Wexler during the last 2 weeks of her life. According to Mara's calendar, she had booked a solo session on the day before the Colorado trip, but no appointment record existed. That was Elise's first red flag. The second came when she dug deeper into Lila's background. Her license history showed a temporary suspension 5 years ago, sealed behind legal walls. The reason? Boundary concerns with a male client. The state board closed the case quietly. No names were released. But Elise had a gut feeling. This wasn't the first time Lila blurred lines. On day 2 of the cruise, Elise confronted Daniel, not with accusations, but casual warmth. "Crazy seeing you here," she smiled. "I didn't know you were the retreat type." Daniel's smile froze for half a second. "Grief changes you," he said. That night, Elise returned to her room, slid her earbuds in, and hit play on the reflection room audio. She heard hushed voices. "Lila, you're not panicking, are you?" Daniel, "I'm not, but Elise is here." Lila, "That's a problem." Then silence. Then the sound of a hand touching skin. A zipper. The tape didn't catch the whole conversation, but it caught enough. They were lovers. They were hiding something, and they were afraid of Elise. That night, Elise wrote one line in her notebook and circled it in red. If Mara didn't just fall, what if they made her disappear? She didn't know that across the ship, Lila had begun to suspect the truth. Someone was watching them, and someone wasn't going to leave this cruise alive. The official narrative was clean. Too clean. Mara Jensen had slipped off a narrow hiking path in Dead Elk Ridge, Colorado, a notoriously steep, unstable terrain. Her husband Daniel told police she screamed once, and then silence. He tried to find her. He was hysterical when he called 911. She'd fallen nearly 90 feet. The case closed in under 2 weeks. A tragic accident. But Elise Martin had seen that cliff. She flew out 3 weeks after Mara's funeral, hired a local guide, climbed the same trail. Something was off. The edge wasn't unstable. It was fenced off with warning signs and wooden barriers. The only way to fall would be to cross those boundaries on purpose. And Mara? She was the most cautious person Elise had ever known. Even on college hikes, she'd double-tie her boots and count every calorie burned. Elise couldn't shake the image. What would make Mara go that close to the edge? Or worse, who? Forensics confirmed. No drugs, no alcohol, no obvious trauma beyond impact. But when Elise got her hands on the full report, thanks to an old law school friend in Colorado, she found one overlooked detail. Subtle bruising on the underside of both upper arms, consistent with restraint or forceful gripping prior to fall. It had been dismissed as bruising from the impact, but Elise knew better. People who trip don't get grabbed first. Back on the cruise ship, Daniel stared out at the water. Alone. Quiet. Distant. Lila, however, was agitated. She'd canceled her next talk. Spotted whispering to the ship's retreat coordinator. Elise tried to approach her, and was coldly brushed off. That night, Elise received a note slid under her cabin door. In scratchy handwriting it read, "I heard what you recorded. She knows. Be careful." Dr. Lila Wexler had built her empire on pain, but not her own. She made a career treating grief like a science, predictable, treatable, containable. Her books sold in airports and therapist offices nationwide. She spoke at universities. She offered stage-side comfort in TED Talks titled Permission to Mourn. But behind the quotes and credentials was a truth she worked hard to bury. She wasn't just a healer. She was a handler. Before Mara's death, therapy with Lila had crossed a dangerous line. Elise now had access to Mara's private journals, mailed to her months earlier and mostly unread. Until now. Mara had written things Elise had never heard her say out loud. "Lila touches my hand when Daniel frustrates me. She says she sees what I can't. Daniel respects her more than he respects me. It's like I'm not in the room when they talk." The entries painted a dark triangle forming long before the cliffside fall. Not only had Lila violated patient confidentiality by speaking privately with Daniel, she had begun to form an emotional alliance with him behind Mara's back. Elise remembered one line vividly. "I don't know who my therapist is loyal to anymore." And Mara had tried to leave. Her last entry, "I'm going to cancel next week. I think she knows." Back on the ship, Lila stood on stage delivering her keynote. Calm, composed, magnetic. But Elise wasn't listening to the speech. She was studying the people. A woman 3 rows up suddenly locked eyes with Elise. Late 30s, hands trembling. At intermission, she approached her quietly. "I knew Mara. I saw her that week." Lila told her something that scared her. "What was it?" Elise asked. The woman whispered, "That Daniel would never leave her." And he didn't have to. The woman from the audience, her name was Kendra Brightman, wasn't just another passenger. She had known Mara through a local grief support group months before her death. Kendra had also booked sessions with Dr. Lila Wexler after losing her fiancé in a cycling accident. What she told Elise on the balcony after the seminar chilled her more than anything so far. Mara told me she was done with therapy, that she was scared of what Lila was telling Daniel behind her back. She thought someone was manipulating him, getting in his head. She didn't say it outright, but she wasn't just scared of her husband. She was scared of her therapist. Elise asked if Kendra would go on record. Kendra hesitated. Not here. Not while we're still trapped at sea. They agreed to meet the next day in cabin 624, where Elise was staying. That night, Elise was editing audio clips when she heard the knock. Soft, then a pause, then a second knock, harder. She opened the door to find no one. She stepped into the hallway, her breath catching as she scanned both sides. Empty corridor. Nothing but the hum of engines. But when she turned back to her door, she saw it, a single rose. Red, fresh, laying right at the foot of her cabin and tucked inside the stem. A folded note. No handwriting this time, just a printed sentence. Keep digging, and she won't be the only one who falls. Elise's hands trembled as she locked her door, double-checked her recorder, and placed her laptop against the inside of the peephole, just in case someone tried to look in. She texted Kendra to cancel the next day's meeting. No response. 10 minutes passed. Still nothing. Then her phone buzzed. It was a voicemail from the ship's front desk. Miss Martin, someone just reported a guest was seen being pushed near the aft stairwell. We believe it may have been your visitor. The Astra Meridian didn't have a morgue, but it had security protocols. When Elise arrived at the aft stairwell minutes after the voicemail, she found nothing but a velvet rope and a slick trail of water leading toward the lower deck. A crew member was mopping, not rushing, not alarmed. No one had called medical. No crime scene tape. No protocol. She asked about the incident. The man shrugged. Just a slip by the pool deck, they think. But the spot where Kendra was last seen was far from any pool. Elise's stomach twisted. She headed to the front desk to get answers. The receptionist, polite but clearly coached, said Kendra had returned to her cabin and was resting. Would you like us to ring her for you? Yes, they dialed. No answer. Elise insisted on seeing the room herself. The staff hesitated, until she mentioned the note, the threat, the voicemail, and the fact that she was recording everything. They agreed to send security to escort her to Kendra's cabin. Cabin 218. When they knocked, no one answered. The security officer used the override keycard. The door swung open. No one inside. What they did find was a red rose on the nightstand, and Elise's own name scribbled on a piece of cruise stationery. But the most alarming thing wasn't what was in the room. It was the keycard. Log cabin 218 had been accessed at 3:12 a.m., just after the voicemail. The keycard ID belonged to Dr. Lila Wexler. Elise demanded answers. Security shrugged. Could be a system glitch, or a duplicate key, but Elise knew this cruise didn't issue duplicates without logging the request. She pulled out her recorder and whispered into it. They're covering for her. She was in Kendra's room, and now Kendra's gone. By day 4 of the Astra Meridian's grief retreat, the mood aboard had shifted. Laughter at the bar was muted. Conversations in hallways ended when Elise passed. She could feel the shift. Not just suspicion, but fear. Her questions had stirred something, and now she was being watched as closely as she was watching them. But Elise didn't slow down. She went back to her cabin, locked the door, and pulled out the audio from the reflection room, the one she had half listened to days earlier. Her mind had been racing then. Now she played it slowly, deliberately, and this time she heard everything. The first 90 seconds were background noise, chair creaks, deep breaths. Then came Daniel's voice, low and uneven. I didn't mean to do it that way. She just wouldn't stop asking. Lila, you said she was pulling away. You said she wasn't stable. Daniel. She said she'd go public. Said she'd tell Elise. Lila, after a long pause. You panicked. That doesn't make you a killer. It makes you scared. Daniel. You said it would never come back to us. Lila. And it won't. Not unless you spiral. The last word was clipped. But what followed was unmistakable. The sound of a kiss. Slow. Familiar. Then silence. And then, Lila again. We're going to get through this. Together. Elise sat frozen. She had just captured a confession, not a slip of the tongue. A full admission. Two people plotting silence around a dead woman. She backed up the file, created 3 duplicates, and stored one on a cloud drive she'd set up under a false name. But when she returned to her laptop 20 minutes later, she found something chilling. The audio file had been deleted from her device, from the cloud. Even the duplicates were gone. Someone had accessed her system, someone on the ship, and they were already one step ahead. Elise Martin didn't sleep that night. Not because of fear, but because of fury. She had taken every precaution, used burner cloud storage, hidden folders, encrypted drives, and yet someone with technical access and intimate knowledge of her movements had erased the one thing that could have shattered the facade of Lila Wexler and Daniel Jensen, and there was only one place left to turn: ship security. She marched to the operations office at 7:45 a.m. sharp. The security supervisor, Andre Collis, greeted her with tired eyes and a fake smile. He had been cooperative before, but today he seemed rehearsed. I need footage from Reflection Room B. Timestamp 10:14 p.m. to 11 p.m. 2 nights ago. Andre hesitated. That camera has been under maintenance since day 1. Elise stared him down. There's a live feed monitor in the staff galley. I saw it. He held her gaze for 3 full seconds, then sighed. The footage was corrupted during a scheduled backup. Nothing usable. Lies. The system hadn't failed. Someone had pulled the strings to make it look like it had. Desperate, Elise scanned the ship's public camera hubs, souvenir shops, elevator banks, buffet lines. She got lucky. She found Daniel and Lila in a narrow hallway, near the spa, holding hands, kissing. Timestamp 11:42 p.m. the night before the confession recording. It wasn't proof of murder, but it was proof of collusion. She requested a copy. Can't release passenger footage without legal cause, Andre said. So Elise played her final card. She emailed a copy of her findings to an FBI contact she had worked with in her journalism days. Just a routine tip-off. She wrote with the subject line, "Cruise cover-up, high-profile therapist involved in patient death." The reply came within 3 hours. We have a missing person alert matching your description of Kendra Brightman. We're dispatching agents to intercept the ship at port. But the most chilling detail was at the bottom of the email. One of your ship's passengers filed a statement to the Bureau last month, claiming Mara's death was suicide. The name attached to that false report? Elise's old college roommate, Mara's sister. Her name was Rebecca Hallman, but Elise had always called her Becky. Mara's younger half-sister. They had all grown up together, shared childhoods, secrets, even first breakups. Elise had cried in Becky's arms the night Mara died. But now, that same woman had submitted a sworn statement to the FBI, claiming Mara's fall had been intentional, that she had a history of depression, and that her husband Daniel had done everything he could. Elise knew that wasn't true. Mara had her struggles, sure, but never suicidal. And Becky? She knew that. Which meant only one thing. She was lying to protect someone. Elise dug through old texts, screenshots, family photos, and voicemail backups. Slowly, the picture began to form. Becky had spent a lot of time at Mara's house in the year leading up to her death. Too much time. There were entire weekends Mara wasn't home, and Becky still stayed with Daniel. She pulled bank statements. The last thing Mara had ever sent her before her death. Can't talk now, Mara wrote. But look at the third line. Tell me I'm crazy. On that third line, a withdrawal, $4,000, from a joint account to Rebecca Hallman. 2 days before the Colorado trip. Back on the ship, Elise made a decision. She called Becky. Her voice was calm. Too calm, you need to stop. You're chasing ghosts, Elise. Elise didn't flinch. You filed a statement. You lied to the FBI. A pause. Then, you don't know what Mara was like at the end. No, but you do. And you still let him take her there. Another pause. I warned her. I told her he'd never leave Lila. And I told her if she exposed them, she'd ruin everything. Elise's blood ran cold. Becky hadn't just known about the affair. She had been the one who told Mara about it. And when Mara threatened to come forward, Becky stood by Daniel and Lila. Not her own sister. The announcement came at 4:47 a.m. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain in your cabins. We are experiencing routine disembarkation delay due to port clearance procedures. But Elise knew the truth. She'd received the email at 4:11 a.m. Sharp, federal agents will be boarding at 6 a.m. Request all evidence ready. Keep subjects unaware. After days of chasing shadows, manipulating audio, dodging threats, and collecting whispers, justice was finally on its way. The ship would dock in Key West, and agents from the FBI's Behavioral Threat Assessment Team would be waiting on the gangway. Elise wasn't just a witness anymore. She was the lead source in a federal homicide investigation. She left her cabin quietly and made her way to cabin 433, Lila Wexler's room. She stood in front of the door and listened. Silence. No shuffle. No water. Not even breathing. She knocked once. Nothing. Twice. Still nothing. She flagged security, who reluctantly opened the door. The room was empty, pristine. Bed made. No clothes in the closet. No personal items on the vanity. Only one thing had been left behind. A folded note on the pillow. I taught grief for a living. But you're about to learn it. Panicked, Elise ran 3 decks up to find Daniel. But his room was empty too. No sign of a bag. No toothbrush. No toiletries. Only the pair of shoes he always wore on deck, still sitting neatly by the door. Then she remembered something chilling from day 2. Daniel had casually mentioned, I always wanted to learn how to scuba dive. She hadn't thought anything of it. Until now. By 6:08 a.m., FBI agents boarded the vessel. They were calm, quiet, direct, but their faces changed when security reported the missing passengers. 2 cabins, gone, no checkout, no digital trail, no footage, vanished, just like Mara. For 87 days the case went cold. No sightings of Dr. Lila Wexler, no financial activity, no credit card pings, no customs alerts. Daniel Jensen, too, vanished, as if the ocean had swallowed them whole. The FBI dragged their search across 3 ports and the Florida Keys coastline, assisted by Maritime Patrol and Interpol. Dive teams explored coves. Flight logs were scoured. Elise was questioned repeatedly. Her recordings, her notes, her theories. Still, no arrests. No bodies. No closure. It was as if the murderers had drifted off into the fog, leaving behind nothing but doubt and silence. Until day 88. Elise was back home, sitting in the corner of her apartment with a mug of cold tea, staring at the gray light filtering through her curtains, when her old phone buzzed. A voicemail had come through, time-stamped 2:13 a.m. No number, no caller ID. She pressed play. The wind howled, ocean waves, static. Then a woman's voice, calm, controlled, familiar. You should have stopped, Elise. Grief has many stages. You just unlocked a new one. You don't bury truth. You drown it. And if it floats back up, click. Silence. Elise stared at the screen, the message still playing. Timestamp running, but no sound. The message had no source. The audio file didn't exist on her phone storage. Her provider couldn't track it. The FBI confirmed. It wasn't sent from any network device. Somehow someone had recorded it, routed it, and dropped it directly into her voicemail inbox without leaving a trail. Digital ghosting. Professionals only. 1 week later, Elise received a brown padded envelope in her mailbox. No return address. Inside, a cheap USB drive, on it, the original reflection room confession she thought had been erased. Perfect quality. Untouched. But at the very end of the file, one final addition. Mara's voice, faint, tearful, terrified. "If you're hearing this, I was right. They were never going to let me go. The ocean doesn't keep secrets. It just holds them a little longer."